Don't want it? I do. The 9 ice chains wrapped around Jianghu, exuding a shocking coldness. Break, break, Jianghu shouted as he slashed at the ice chains with his void-breaking sword, trying to break them. However, a series of metal clanging sounds rang out and sparks flew in all directions. The ice chains were completely undamaged, but they were sent flying by the powerful force. However, after the ice chain flew out, it turned and continued to attack Jianghu. So tough? How is this possible? Jianghu's expression changed drastically, and he was in disbelief. The ice chains were only condensed by Lu Ming using a secret skill and were not any divine weapon. He had not expected that the void-splitting sword could not cut it. At this moment, Lu Ming himself had also charged forward. He swung his long spear down and a crescent-shaped spear radiance slashed down at Jianghu. Jianghu hurriedly blocked. Although he blocked Lu Ming's attack, the ice chains came at him again. Clang, clang, clang. He waved his sword and continuously slashed at the ice chains, shaking them away. However, the shocking chill of the ice chains crawled up Jianghu's body through his sword. The 9th ice chain, in particular, had an even more astonishing chill. Under the stimulation of the divine power of the moon, its power became more and more terrifying. The layer of golden light on Jianghu's body was covered in a layer of frost. His movements also became stiff, and his strength was greatly affected. Kill! Lu Ming let out a long howl and seized the opportunity to launch a storm of attacks, beginning to suppress Jianghu in all aspects. In fact, if Lu Ming went all out, he could easily crush Jianghu. However, Lu Ming felt that there might be a big battle later on, so it was better to keep some trump cards. Bang! After a few more moves, Jianghu was swept by Lu Ming's spear gleam. The protective divine power that covered his body shattered, and his body flew out horizontally, spitting out a large mouthful of blood. Damn it, brat, I'll settle this score another day. Jianghu roared and was about to rush out of the stone platform. Another day? You still want another day? You're really naive. Lu Ming's cold voice was heard. The 9 ice chains grew longer rapidly and danced in the sky like an inescapable net, blocking Jianghu's retreat. Boom! Jianghu's attack landed on the ice chain, but the ice chain only trembled. Jianghu's body was blocked. Lu Ming, what do you want to do? Don't tell me you want to kill me? Do you dare? Jianghu roared. He was a top-notch Heaven's Pride expert of the Jin clan. The Jin clan was one of the top aristocratic families in the 9 absolute heavenly king manor. Lu Ming, a mere piece of trash from the Qin Heaven Starfield, dared to kill him? Hee hee. Lu Ming's reply was a cold sneer. Then, Lu Ming took a step forward and the spear's gleam was as heavy as a mountain, pressing down on Jianghu. Bang! With one side losing and the other gaining, Jianghu was even less of a match for Lu Ming. He was sent flying by one move and crashed into the ice chains. He was severely injured and kept spitting out blood. The ice chains seized the opportunity to bind Jianghu. Ah, let me go. Lu Ming, I order you to let me go. Jianghu roared. Order me? You're just a prisoner, and you're ordering me around? Are you out of your mind? Lu Ming was so angry that he laughed. He waved the ice chain and smashed Jin Xing to the ground. Instantly, Jianghu was smashed into a dead dog. Lu Ming, you'd better let him go. Otherwise, the Jin family will not let you off. You should know the power of the Jin family in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Outside the arena, Jin Xing shouted and threatened Lu Ming. Brat, let me go. I don't believe you dare to kill me. Jianghu also roared. At this point, he still did not believe that Lu Ming would dare to kill him, especially in front of so many people. What an idiot, I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming sighed. Then, an icy cold killing intent filled the air. Enveloped by this killing intent, Jianghu shivered. At this moment, he felt a chill in his heart and his eyes revealed fear. He had a feeling that Lu Ming would really kill him. Lu Ming really dared to. No, don't, Jianghu shouted in fear. He was finally scared. You don't want it? I want it. Let's go, Lu Ming said calmly. He thrust his spear forward and pierced through the space between Jianghu's eyebrows. Jianghu twitched and stopped breathing. He was killed by Lu Ming on the spot. Lu Ming. Outside the arena, Jin Xing roared with anger. He did not expect that Lu Ming would dare to kill the top talent of the Jin family. Was he not afraid of the Jin family's revenge? "I'll kill whoever wants to kill me, who cares who they are?" Lu Ming said coldly. He had experienced so much along the way that he had long understood one thing. When dealing with enemies, one must be ruthless. If there was a chance to kill, one must kill. Because your enemy will not stop just because you let him go. On the contrary, they will take revenge even more. Even if he didn't kill Jianghu, the Jin clan wouldn't let him go. Since that was the case, why not kill him? Jin Xing shut up. He knew that Lu Ming was a ruthless character. Threats would not have an effect on him. "Lu Ming, just you wait," Jin Xing roared in his heart, brewing a vicious plan. After killing Jianghu, Lu Ming kept his storage ring and waited quietly. A day later, a light screen enveloped Lu Ming. He sat cross-legged and entered the starry sky of the universe. The effects of the second row of stone platforms were extraordinary. Lu Ming's cultivation speed was very fast. His degree of awakening of the ruler's divine power was also rapidly increasing. 50%, 55%. Looking at Lu Ming sitting cross-legged on the stone platform, Jin Xing's eyes were filled with ferocious killing intent. He could not wait to cut Lu Ming into 8 pieces. Unfortunately, Lu Ming had the protection of the array. He could only dream about it. This guy killed Qin Mu? After a period of time, one of the Qin clan's heaven's favorites ended his cultivation. He had already been cultivating on the stone platform for 3 years. He couldn't continue cultivating, so he left the stone platform. Jin Xing told him the news as soon as he left the stone platform. That's right. Not only did this person kill Qin Mu, but he also killed the proud son of heaven of my Jin clan, Jianghu. Jin Xing gritted his teeth and said, "What? He even killed Jianghu. Is he that strong?" The Qin clan's paragon was also shocked. "This kid is a monster. He must be eliminated." Jin Xing gritted his teeth and said, "Don't worry. Qin Wukong, the pride of the Qin family, is cultivating in the second row. The degree of his divine power awakening has long reached 90%. After this cultivation, I'm afraid it's very close to 100%. In addition, he has broken through to the 8th level with a few of his divine skills. It's enough to kill Lu Ming." The Qin clan's chosen said coldly, "That's great." Jin Xing was also overjoyed. The person they were talking about was the genius of the Qin clan who was cultivating in the second row. Time flew by and soon 2 months had passed. At this moment, Qin Wukong, the Qin clan's prodigy, who was cultivating in the second row, woke up. Chapter 3019 Rapid Improvement. The Qin clan's proud son of heaven, Qin Wukong, had ended his cultivation and awakened. After he regained his senses, Qin Wukong stood up and looked at 2 of the young men in the first row. "Now, my awakening of divine power has reached 99%. I can challenge the first row and use the power of the first row to completely awaken the origin divine power factor." Qin Wuxiang mumbled, his eyes brimming with confidence. Before, his Shen power had not awakened to such a high level, so he had not dared to challenge the first row. After a period of cultivation, he had full confidence. Of course, he did not dare to challenge the genius who had awakened the origin divine power factor. He wanted to challenge the other 2 people. Cousin Wukong. At this time, the Qin clan's heaven's favorite in the crowd shouted, "Is there something?" Qin Wukong turned around and said, "Qin Mu has been killed." The Qin clan's chosen said, "Qin Mu was killed? Who was it? Which aristocratic family did it?" Upon hearing these words, a cold, killing intent erupted from Qin Wukong's body. His cold gaze swept across the surroundings. The expressions of those who were caught by his gaze changed, and their hearts beat faster. Among the Heaven's Pride experts in the Universal Camp who were below the God King stage, Qin Wukong was definitely considered as one of the top experts. It's him, Lu Ming. It's Lu Ming who killed Qin Mu. The Qin clan's paragon pointed at Lu Ming, who was cultivating. Subconsciously, Qin Wukong's gaze shifted to Lu Ming. He could not help but be stunned. If he remembered correctly, this position belonged to Jianghu. Why did it become Lu Ming's? Lu Ming, he can kill Qin Mu? Qin Wukong's deep voice sounded with some doubt. This kid is very powerful. You can't just look at his cultivation. Jianghu, the pride of the Jin clan, was also killed by him. Jin Xing said. What? This time, Qin Wukong was truly shocked. Qin Mu was still fine as he was only a 9th-level heavenly god. However, Jianghu was no small matter. He was in existence at the half-step divine king realm, yet he had actually died at the hands of Lu Ming. This brat can't be left alive. Qin Wukong had this thought. What is this kid's cultivation level? Qin Wukong asked. 5th-level celestial deity, but his combat strength is shocking. At least equivalent to a half-step divine king with a degree of 70 to 80% divine power awakening. Jin Xing said. Such strength? Alright, leave this brat to me. When his 3 months are up, I'll challenge him and kill him here. Qin Wukong's voice was incomparably cold. Although Lu Ming could kill Jianghu, he was confident that he could kill Lu Ming as well. Now his Shen power had awakened to 99%. Adding on the fact that the maturity of his Shen skills was shocking, he was confident. Apart from the few people who had awakened the origin divine power factor, he was invincible among those below the God King level. With Brother Wukong taking action, that brat is dead for sure. Jin Xing was overjoyed. He looked at Lu Ming with an even more ferocious gaze. Next, Qin Wukong did not cultivate. He stood on the stone platform and waited quietly. Naturally, Lu Ming was completely unaware of all this. He was completely focused on comprehending the god's divine power. As expected of the second row of stone platforms, the effect was simply too good. It was not something that the lower rows could compare to. The difference in effect was tens of times. Lu Ming's awakening level of the ruler's divine power was rapidly increasing. With the increase in the degree of awakening of the god's divine power, Lu Ming's strength had also improved. Very quickly, 3 months had passed. The universe and the starry sky disappeared. Lu Ming opened his eyes on the stone platform. 88%. Lu Ming muttered. The degree of awakening of the ruler's divine power had reached 88%. Lu Ming had only been cultivating here for 9 months and his awakening of ruler's divine power had increased from 1 to 2% to 88%. If others were to know about this, their jaws would probably drop. This speed was too shocking. I really don't know how amazing the effects of the first row are. With my current strength, I should be able to challenge the first row. Lu Ming muttered and then stood up. Boom. As soon as Lu Ming stood up, he felt a strong pressure pressing down on him. At the same time, a young man appeared in front of him, staring at him coldly. This young man was naturally Qin Wukong. As soon as Lu Ming woke up, Qin Wukong rushed to Lu Ming's stone platform. It's him. I didn't look for him, but he did look for me. That's good. Lu Ming revealed a smile. Kid, you can still laugh at a time like this? Qin Wukong said coldly. Why can't I laugh? You're here to die, so of course I have to laugh. Lu Ming continued to smile. I'm here to die. Looks like you're very confident after defeating a few people. I want to see how strong your combat power is as a 5th-level celestial deity. Qin Wukong said coldly. As he spoke, a dazzling radiance burst forth from his body. His divine power burned like flames, stirring up a terrifying gale that crushed toward Lu Ming. An ancient aura bloomed wantonly. The origin divine power factor, no, it hasn't awakened yet. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. He thought that Qin Wukong had awakened the divine force factor. However, after sensing carefully, he realized that Qin Wukong had not awakened the divine force factor at all. However, he was not far from awakening it. So powerful. I'm afraid Qin Wukong's divine power has already awakened to 99%. Among the crowd, there were some knowledgeable people who had seen through Qin Wukong's background. With such an aura, he's indeed just one step away from completely awakening the origin divine power factor. This will be interesting. Many people were discussing. Lu Ming was a monstrous existence. He was able to kill a half-step divine king like Jianghu even though he was only at the 5th level heavenly deity realm. Then, could he fight with Qin Wukong? Boom. At this moment, Qin Wukong made his move. He threw out a punch and a huge fist print headed towards Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. Ancient God Body. Without hesitation, Lu Ming cast his Ancient God Body and activated the battle character formula that multiplied his combat power by 4. Facing an opponent like Qin Wukong, Lu Ming had no choice but to go all out. The long spear trembled and a dazzling spear radiance broke through the air, piercing toward Qin Wukong's fist imprint. Boom! The spear radiance and the fist print collided, causing a terrifying energy wave to erupt and sweep in all directions. Fortunately, the Heaven's favorites cultivating on the other stone platforms were protected by the formation. The energy didn't affect them in the slightest. Otherwise, they would have been seriously injured or even killed. Buzz! The spear radiance shook continuously and then exploded. At the same time, the huge fist print also exploded. I blocked it. Lu Ming could actually block Qin Wukong's punch. Many people were shocked. Qin Wukong's eyes also focused. This kid is a monster. Kill him. Qin Wukong gave a low roar and pushed his divine power to the limit. The power of his divine power, which had awakened to 99%, burst out in full force, turning into a terrifying fist print that blasted toward Lu Ming. The great battle with Qin Wukong Qin Wushang's strength was extremely terrifying. His divine power had awakened to 99%, and its power was astonishing. Not only was it extremely condensed, but it also had a trace of the characteristics of origin divine power, which was full of destructive power. Using this divine power to display the 7-injury fist was not something the Qin clan's Heaven's favorites from before could compare to. Moon slaying. Lu Ming activated the divine energy in his body to the extreme. With the 7 types of divine-grade divine energy as the core, he condensed them into a ball and struck out along with the power of the long spear. Boom! The second collision between the two of them was even more terrifying. The stone platform under their feet shook violently. This time, the two of them were still equally matched, and it was difficult to determine who was better. The people in the audience were really shocked, especially Jin Xing. Although Lu Ming was stronger than him when they fought in the Qin Heaven Galaxy, there was a limit. It had only been a short while and Lu Ming's strength had already reached such a level. This level of strength could completely kill him in seconds. 7-injury divine fist. Qin Wukong let out a long howl and continuously punched out with both his fists. One after another, fist seals emerged from his body and pressed down on Lu Ming. Sky-breaking, moon-cutting. Lu Ming continued to cast the first 2 moves of the 3 apocalyptic strikes as he fought with Qin Wukong. The two of them fought intensely and continuously. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of moves, but it was difficult to determine the winner. Satisfying. The more Lu Ming fought, the more excited he became. His fighting spirit grew stronger and stronger. He was more and more used to the 3 apocalyptic strikes. His divine power was endless. He was not afraid of using up his divine power. Every move he made could push the power to the extreme. As for Qin Wukong, the more he fought, the more shocked he became. Lu Ming was only a 5th-level celestial deity. With his cultivation base, he originally thought that he could easily take him down. However, Lu Ming's combat strength far exceeded his expectations. Up until now, he had not managed to take down Lu Ming. It seems that I have to go all out? Qin Wukong's eyes flashed. Then, his body suddenly retreated. In the process of his retreat, a ray of green light suddenly appeared on his body. Buzz! In the next moment, Qin Wukong's figure disappeared. On the stone platform, a series of afterimages appeared. This was a terrifying speed-type divine skill. When it was used, the sky was filled with afterimages, and the speed was astonishing. With Lu Ming's current eyesight, it was difficult for an average speed to leave an afterimage in his eyes. To be able to leave an afterimage in front of his eyes, one could see how fast the speed was. It was faster than Lu Ming's eyesight. Speed-type divine skill, level 8. Lu Ming muttered. He could tell that Qin Wukong was using a speed-type divine skill. However, it had already reached the 8th level. For those below the God King level, being able to cultivate a God technique to the 8th level was already extremely impressive. For example, the Qin clan's prodigy and Jianghu had only cultivated their divine skills to the 7th level. 7 Injury Divine Fist. Qin Wukong's voice rang out again. Then, from all directions, fist prints blasted toward Lu Ming and completely enveloped him. The combination of a speed-type divine skill and the 7 Injury Divine Fist sealed off all escape routes, and its power increased even more. In an instant, dozens of fist prints were blasted toward Lu Ming. Do you think you're the only one who has the 8th level of a speed-type divine skill? Lu Ming muttered. Divine energy surged on his body and condensed into a 9th heaven Kunpeng. This 9th heaven Kunpeng was very small and was only slightly bigger than Lu Ming. With a flap of its wings, Lu Ming disappeared from where he was. In the eyes of the others, Lu Ming had also turned into a series of afterimages as he shuttled through the many fist imprints. His speed was so fast that he was not slower than Qin Wukong. Lu Ming's 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique had also been cultivated to the 8th stage. The 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique was known for its long-distance flight and extremely fast speed. But now, Lu Ming had used it to move within a short distance. It was extremely powerful and he had completely dodged Qin Wukong's fist. This kid's speed-type divine skill has also been cultivated to the 8th level. Damn it! Qin Wukong roared in his heart. He was truly shocked. Buzz! His figure came to a sudden stop. He retracted his fist force, gathered it, and rushed toward Lu Ming. In the process of rushing out, Qin Wukong opened his mouth and let out a long howl. From his mouth, a terrifying vibration was emitted. The air above Qin Wukong's mouth began to vibrate at a visible rate. In the end, it actually turned into many combat swords and slashed toward Lu Ming. Clang, clang. Lu Ming waved his long spear to block it. When the combat sword hit the long spear trembled continuously and buzzed. Lu Ming's body trembled slightly and he took a few steps back. What a powerful divine skill. It's the 8th level of an attack-type divine skill. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Qin Wukong was indeed powerful. No wonder he was so confident. Not only had he cultivated a speed-type divine skill to the 8th level, but he had also cultivated an attack-type divine skill to the 8th level. The power of the 8th level of the offensive divine skill had already surpassed the 7 Injury Divine Fist. Die! Qin Wukong roared. He opened his mouth and howled. The air trembled and formed more combat swords that slashed toward Lu Ming. Divine Dragon Phenomenon. 9-clawed Divine Dragon. Lu Ming shouted and stepped forward. 7 9-clawed Divine Dragons formed and pounced at Qin Wukong, clashing with his sword. Boom, boom, boom. The rumbling sounds continued. The 9-clawed Divine Dragon was no match for it. It trembled violently and was finally split in half. However, Lu Ming cast the ice chain again. The 9 ice chains danced around like long snakes. When Qin Wukong's combat sword struck the ice chains, a clanging sound could be heard. However, it did not break the ice chains and was instead blocked by them. How is that possible? Qin Wukong was shocked. His offensive divine skill was known for its offensive power. He had cultivated it to the 8th level and with the support of his 99% awakened divine power, its power was shocking and its destructive power was extremely strong. However, Lu Ming had actually blocked it. Break the sky! Lu Ming took the opportunity to launch an attack. A ray of spear light burst out and pierced toward Qin Wukong. Qin Wukong was shocked. He wanted to dodge, but it was already too late. He could only barely avoid his vital parts. The spear radiance swept across his body. Half of his body was almost blown apart. Blood and flesh flew everywhere. It was a terrible sight. Lu Ming, I want you to die. Qin Wukong's eyes were bloodshot. His body emitted even more terrifying waves of energy. Boom! Qin Wukong threw out 2 consecutive punches. The 2 fist prints converged into one, emitting a piercing blood-red color. It crushed toward Lu Ming with a frightening power. Its power has increased by a level. It said that the Qin family's 7-injury divine fist gets stronger the more injured you are. It's true. Lu Ming's mind was racing. He had injured Qin Wukong just now, but it had instead allowed Qin Wukong to activate the power of the 7-injury divine fist to its maximum. Let's see how long you can last. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He did not believe that if he beat the other party until he was half dead, the other party would still be able to erupt with combat strength. Buzz. And NBSP whoosh. The 9 ice chains danced around him, forming a defensive wall. Stepping onto the first row, boom. Qin Wukong's 7-injury fist print bombarded the defensive wall formed by the ice chains. The ice chains shook violently, but they managed to block it and did not shatter. Even so, there was still a terrifying force surging toward Lu Ming, forcing him to retreat. However, after Lu Ming took a few steps back, he took a step forward and soared into the sky. Then, he looked down from above and waved his spear. Space breaking, space breaking. In an instant, Lu Ming executed more than a dozen moves of space piercing. More than a dozen spear lights fell like stars and blasted toward Qin Wukong. Qin Wukong was helpless. He could only continue to punch. However, even though the 7-injury divine fist would be more powerful after being injured, it also had a drawback, which was that it would add injuries to the injuries. If he couldn't finish off his opponent in a short time, his injuries would only get worse. Just like that, Lu Ming and Qin Wukong continued to fight and exchanged dozens of moves. It had to be said that Qin Wukong was a terrifying opponent. He was extremely talented. No matter if it was divine skills, secret arts, or divine power, he was not weak. If his divine power was completely awakened and he awakened the origin factor of divine power, he would definitely be able to pass through the heaven gate. Moreover, the more injured he was, the more powerful the 7 injuries divine fist would be. Lu Ming had almost used all his means, but he could not take down Qin Wushang in a short time. However, after such a long battle, Qin Wushang's injuries were getting more and more serious, and the power of the 7-injury fist was starting to weaken. The 7-injury fist couldn't defy the heavens. When the injury reached a certain level, the power wouldn't increase, but would weaken instead. After exchanging another blow with Lu Ming, Qin Wukong's body trembled and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale. Detestable! Qin Wukong let out a furious roar. He gritted his teeth and his body suddenly retreated. In an instant, he had retreated out of the range of the stone platform. He directly admitted defeat. Why don't you dare to fight? Didn't you want to kill me? We haven't even fought to the death and you're already leaving? Lu Ming's mocking voice was heard. Qin Wukong gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with crazy killing intent. However, he did not speak. He took out a healing pill and swallowed it. He focused on healing his injuries. Qin Wukong was actually defeated. Many people murmured. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. Qin Wukong was actually defeated at the hands of a 5th-level heavenly deity. Qin Wukong was definitely a top existence below the God King level. Other than the few geniuses who had awakened the origin divine power, he was almost an invincible figure. Such a character was actually defeated at the hands of a 5th-level celestial deity. This Lu Ming is so scary, he's indeed terrifying. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation base is slightly weaker, if his cultivation base were to increase and reach the half-step divine king realm. No, as long as he's at the 9th level of the celestial deity realm, I'm afraid no one below the divine king realm would be his match. Many people exclaimed. The expressions of Jin Xing, Qin Wukong, and the others turned even uglier. Hee hee. On the stone platform, Lu Ming swept a glance at Qin Wukong and the others before turning around. However, he did not sit down. His gaze was fixed on the 3 stone platforms in the first row. Many people were shocked. Could it be that Lu Ming wanted to challenge the people in the first row? With his strength, he might really succeed. Someone spoke, and many people nodded. Indeed, among the 3 people in the first row, other than the heaven's favorite who had awakened the primordial divine power factor, the other 2 might not be as strong as Qin Wukong. If Lu Ming could defeat Qin Wukong, he might be able to defeat the other two and secure a position. Many people's eyes lit up as they anticipated another peak battle. Lu Ming indeed wanted to challenge the people in the first row. He could only cultivate for 3 years here. Lu Ming had been cultivating for 9 months. Time was precious. Of course, Lu Ming would use the remaining time to cultivate in the most effective position. Lu Ming swallowed a few divine pills and refined the medicinal effects to recover. This wait lasted for 5 days. At this moment, a young man in the first row began to glow. It's him, Su Yan. Many people's hearts trembled. The person suffused with light was the genius who had awakened the origin divine power factor. His name was Su Yan. Lu Ming will definitely not challenge Su Yan. Many people shook their heads. Indeed, Lu Ming had no intention of challenging Su Yan. With his current abilities, he was no match for him. Su Yan opened his eyes and stood up, frowning. What a pity! With a low sigh, Su Yan actually stepped out and directly left the stone platform. He turned into a rainbow light and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. Su Yan has left? It seems that he has been cultivating here for 3 years. The 3-year period is up. There is no point in staying here. Looking at his expression, his divine power shouldn't have awakened for the second time. Of course. How can the second awakening of Shen power be so easy? Every time Shen power awakens, the difficulty is 10 times harder than the previous one. Anyone below the God King level who can awaken it for the first time is already a genius among geniuses. A second awakening is simply impossible. After seeing Su Yan leave, many people began to discuss. He's actually gone. That saves me a lot of trouble. Lu Ming smiled. He took a step forward and appeared on the stone platform that Su Yan was on earlier. Lu Ming has indeed gone up. Many people shook their heads. Lu Ming stepped onto the stone platform in the first row. No one dared to challenge him. What a joke. Even Qin Wukong had been defeated. If he went up without awakening the origin divine power factor, wouldn't he be asking for humiliation? There were quite a number of people who were competing for Lu Ming's position. After a round of fighting, the stone platform was occupied by one person. As for Lu Ming, no one challenged him. After a day, a light screen enveloped Lu Ming. He sat cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. It was still the same starry sky, and the original gods were still fighting. However, the feeling was much clearer. Very soon, Lu Ming found the origin divine energy of the ruler's divine power and began to study it. Buzz. A streak of original divine power of a ruler's divine power flew towards Lu Ming. At first, Lu Ming was unconcerned. However, the next moment, his expression changed. This was because when this strand of divine power flew over, it actually scattered into dozens of strands. Then, each strand of divine power actually turned into a figure and charged toward Lu Ming. The cold, killing intent, the ear-piercing energy, everything was so real. Lu Ming instinctively blocked it. The 9 ice chains flew out and blocked in front of him. Boom, boom. The origin divine power of the ruler's divine power transformed into dozens of figures and attacked the ice chains. The ice chains trembled continuously. Lu Ming felt as if he had been hit by a planet. His body was thrown back, his qi and blood boiling, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It's true. It's true. It has offensive power. Lu Ming's gaze turned solemn. This attack was not an illusion, but real. Then come. Lu Ming's fighting spirit was strong. He wanted to use his ancient god body, but he realized that he could not. It was useless to trigger the battle formula. It seems like I can only rely on divine power and divine skills to resist. Lu Ming muttered. He condensed a long spear in his hand and charged forward. There are also iron-headed ones. Lu Ming thrust his spear forward, while the figure formed by the origin divine power threw a punch. Their attacks collided. Boom. There was a loud explosion. Lu Ming's body swayed slightly, while the figure was sent flying. This kind of fluctuation, Lu Ming was not shocked. Instead, he was delighted and his eyes lit up. In the exchange of blows just now, Lu Ming could clearly feel that his opponent was completely condensed from the origin divine energy of the ruler's divine power. In the collision, Lu Ming could feel the mystery of the origin divine energy even more clearly. No wonder, no wonder. Is this the purpose of the first row of stone platforms? Lu Ming was overjoyed. The first row of stone platforms was for direct combat with the corresponding divine power of the origin. This way, the effect would naturally be much better. Previously, he had only been watching. Now, he was fighting directly, so the effect was naturally different. Buzz. And NBSP whoosh. At this moment, many figures were rushing over from all directions. Come on. Come on, Lu Ming was excited. He waved his long spear and rushed forward. In such a battle, not only could he experience the origin divine power personally, but he could also hone his various divine skills and secret skills. This was Lu Ming's favorite method. Lu Ming was also fighting with dozens of figures formed by the divine power of the origin. In the beginning, Lu Ming was completely outmatched. Fortunately, the injuries he sustained here would heal quickly and would not harm his body. Just like that, Lu Ming focused on cultivation. Outside the stone platform, in the crowd, Jin Xing, Qin Wukong, and the others were looking at Lu Ming, who was cultivating with cold eyes. What do we do? Are we just going to let this kid continue to live his life? One of the Qin family members gritted his teeth and was extremely unhappy. Now, in Star Moon Ancient City, the only person in the Jin and Qin families who can kill this kid is Brother Jin Yuan. Qin Wukong said, "That's right. You guys wait here. I'll look for cousin Jin Yuan and get him to kill Lu Ming." Jin Xing gritted his teeth and said, "But Brother Jin Yuan, haven't you already been cultivating there for 3 years? You can't continue to challenge it." One of the Qin clan's elites said, "It doesn't matter if you can't challenge him. We can wait outside. When the 3 years are up, he will naturally come down. At that time, we can just kill him." Jin Xing said coldly, "Good idea. Let's do it this way. We'll keep watch here. Brother Jin Yuan, you'll have to trouble Brother Jin Xing." Qin Wukong said, "All right, you guys wait for my good news." After Jin Xing finished speaking, his figure flashed and he left. Time flew by and the days went by. People from the Myriad God Cliffs vicinity would come and go every day. He came and left and came again. However, many people were very surprised when they saw Lu Ming in the first row. "Isn't that Lu Ming? I remember that he's only a 4th level heavenly deity, but he's actually able to sit in the first row?" Some people were curious. Not a 4th level celestial deity, it's a 5th level celestial deity now. Furthermore, his combat strength is extremely terrifying and completely can't be measured with ordinary people. The person who had seen Lu Ming's moves said, "Hee, extremely terrifying? What a joke. How terrifying could a 5th level celestial deity be? The way I see it, it's you trash, right? To actually let a 5th level celestial deity seize the first row's throne." A golden-robed young man sneered, his face full of mockery. Many people's faces turned ugly. The golden-robed young man's words had scolded everyone who had seen Lu Ming fight before, including Qin Wukong. "So you're going to challenge him?" Someone said. "Of course, the throne in the first row is mine." The golden-robed youth laughed, his face full of confidence. "Oh." The others nodded and didn't say anything else. The gold-robed young man had already scolded them, so they naturally wouldn't say anything more. They would go and remind the gold-robed young man. Very soon, Lu Ming had been cultivating for 3 months. The light screen on his body flashed and Lu Ming opened his eyes. 98%. As expected, the further I progress, the slower the improvement. Lu Ming muttered. After 3 months of cultivation, the degree of awakening of Lu Ming's ruler's divine power had reached 98%. The effects of the first row of seats were extremely good, but the difficulty of the subsequent upgrades was getting higher and higher. If he were to cultivate in the lower rows, the degree of awakening would probably be far from 98%. I've been cultivating for a year. 2 more years should be enough for me to awaken. Lu Ming smiled faintly. At this moment he suddenly felt a powerful aura pressing down on him. Then, he saw a young man in a golden robe land in front of him. "You want to challenge me?" Lu Ming was slightly stunned and asked. Initially, he thought that after he had defeated Qin Wukong, no one would dare to challenge him anymore. He did not expect that there would be someone who was stubborn. "Of course. I wasn't around before, so you were able to cultivate in the first row for a while. Consider it your good fortune. Now, get out of my sight." The golden-robed young man shouted coldly, and a powerful aura emanated from his body. He was extremely arrogant. Half-step divine king realm. This golden-robed young man's cultivation base was not weak. He had reached the half-step divine king realm. No wonder he was so confident. However, the degree of his divine power awakening was far from enough. It was only about 50%. Compared to Qin Wukong, he was far inferior. Outside, many people had mocking smiles on their faces as if they were watching a good show. This person still wanted to challenge Lu Ming. Was he not looking for abuse? However, this person was too arrogant and no one warned him. "Is that so?" Lu Ming muttered and suddenly shouted, "Get lost!" A powerful aura burst out of his body and charged toward the golden-robed young man. The golden-robed young man's expression changed. He said gloomily, "Lu Ming, don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you have some talent. Now is not the time for you to be arrogant. I've already given you a chance. You're the one who refused to get lost. I can only make you get lost personally." With that, the young man in the gold robe moved and charged toward Lu Ming, launching a fierce attack. Lu Ming let out an ancient god's roar. His body quickly enlarged and transformed into an ancient god body. Then he swept his spear out. And NBSP boom boom boom. The long spear crushed the golden-robed young man's attack and instantly shattered it. The terrifying spear radiance continued to lash at the golden-robed young man. "Why would I?" The golden-robed young man roared with a look of disbelief on his face. He then used all his strength to block. However, when the long spear struck down, the golden-robed young man screamed in pain. All his defenses were instantly shattered, and he was sent flying by the long spear. However, before he could fly out of the stone platform, a few ice chains flew over and wrapped around the golden-robed young man. Then, they were waved and thrown onto the stone platform. Bang, bang, bang. The golden-robed young man kept smashing onto the stone platform. Lu Ming had deliberately controlled it. Every time, it was the golden-robed young man's face that smashed onto the stone platform. The golden-robed young man's teeth and blood flew out, and his face was smashed into a deformed shape. "Who asked you to be so arrogant? You deserve it." Many people muttered, but they still felt a chill. Lu Ming was too violent. Awakening the origin divine power factor from the beginning to the end, the gold-robed young man had been crushed by Lu Ming. Although the golden-robed young man was a half-step divine king, he had only awakened about 50% of his divine power and his divine skill had only reached the 7th stage. Compared to Qin Wukong, his combat strength was far inferior. Moreover, in the past few months, the degree of awakening of Lu Ming's ruler's divine power had increased by a notch. His combat strength had also improved. Naturally, it was easy for him to deal with the gold-robed young man. He could completely crush him. After more than a dozen hits, Lu Ming controlled the ice chain and swung it, throwing the gold-robed young man away. The gold-robed young man barely managed to stabilize himself in the air. He looked at Lu Ming in horror. "I already told you to get lost, but you didn't. Why did you stay and be tortured? Why bother?" Lu Ming's voice was heard. The golden-robed young man was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood. He used his movement technique and left without looking back. He didn't even compete for the other stone platforms. He was really too embarrassed. After beating up the gold-robed young man, Lu Ming continued to sit cross-legged and wait. A day later, a layer of light enveloped Lu Ming and he continued to cultivate. Time flew by and another 3 months passed. In the past 3 months, Lu Ming's degree of awakening of his ruler's divine power had reached 99%. However, it stopped after it reached 99%. The degree of awakening had reached 99%. The next step was to completely awaken the origin divine power factor. However, this step was extremely difficult. One step away, and they were worlds apart. Many people were stuck at this step for their entire lives. It was not that easy for Lu Ming to make a breakthrough. Continue cultivating. I don't believe that I can't break through. Lu Ming pondered. He would continue cultivating after a day. This time, no one challenged Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. Lu Ming had been cultivating here for 1.5 years. After 3 months of cultivation, Lu Ming's understanding of the ruler's divine power had deepened. However, the degree of awakening was still at 99%. He continued cultivating. After that, no one challenged Lu Ming. 3 months and another 3 months. Finally, after 2 years of cultivation, Lu Ming had a breakthrough. The chief sovereign's divine power had finally awakened the origin divine power factor. Once the origin divine power factor was awakened, the divine power seemed to undergo a qualitative change. The divine power was filled with a strange factor that made the power of the divine power extremely terrifying. If the chief sovereign's divine power from before was like rotten wood, then the chief sovereign's divine power now was like steel. He was much stronger. Lu Ming felt it carefully and was overjoyed. It was no wonder prodigies who had awakened the origin divine power factor had such terrifying battle power. For example, Lan Ling's battle power was so strong that he could definitely suppress a god king like the Night Demon King. With my current combat strength, it should be easy for me to defeat Qin Wukong. I should be able to suppress a god king like the Night Devil King. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. The 3-month period was up again. Lu Ming opened his eyes and felt refreshed. At this moment he felt his back jump up slightly, and a cold, killing intent enveloped him. Previously, he was also shrouded in killing intent. However, Lu Ming did not have much of a reaction because the owner of the killing intent was not a threat to him. However, this time, Lu Ming's body had a natural reaction. This meant that the owner who emitted the killing intent was a threat to him. Lu Ming turned to look. Gold ingot. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He saw Jin Xing, Jin Yuan, and the others outside the stone platform. The killing intent that made his body tense up was from Jin Yuan. Lu Ming, very good. You dare to kill the Jin clan's prodigy. Very good. Jin Yuan said coldly when he saw Lu Ming looking at him. He did not hide his cold killing intent at all. On the side, many people kept their distance from Jin Yuan. Jin Yuan was an existence who had awakened the origin divine power factor. His strength was terrifying, and no one could stop him when he was in a frenzy. Jin family's trash, I've even invited you here. However, I don't have time to fight with you now. Lu Ming said calmly. He still had a year's time. Having said that, Lu Ming turned his head and stopped paying attention to Jin Yuan. The 3-year period will be over soon. If you don't dare to come out now, let's see how you'll hide after the 3-year period is over. I'll wait for you here. Gold Ingot said coldly. As you wish. Lu Ming left the sentence and did not speak anymore. This made Jin Yuan's gaze even colder. Lu Ming is in danger. I didn't expect that Jin Xing would invite Jin Yuan. It's indeed dangerous. Lu Ming should have left earlier. He was too greedy. He occupied the first row and wanted to cultivate for 3 years. He's going to lose his life now. Some people were discussing in low voices. No one thought that Lu Ming could fight against Jin Yuan. Although Lu Ming was powerful, there was not much of a difference between him and Qin Wukong. At most, he was slightly stronger than Qin Wukong. However, Jin Yuan was an existence who had awakened the origin divine power factor. His battle prowess was definitely much stronger than Qin Wukong's. Even if Lu Ming continued to cultivate, he would not be Jin Yuan's match. Unless Lu Ming had also awakened the origin divine power factor. However, was this possible? Lu Ming was only a 5th-level celestial deity. Before he came here, his degree of awakening was definitely not high. It was impossible for him to awaken the divine power factor in 3 years. Every time, many geniuses would enter Star Moon Ancient City, and many people would cultivate in Myriad God Cliff. Many people were aware of the effects of cultivating in Myriad God Cliff. Although the effect was much better than training outside, it was almost impossible to awaken the origin divine power factor in one training session. For people like Jin Yuan who had awakened the origin divine power factor, it was only after they had entered this place to cultivate and left Star Moon Ancient City that they had successfully awakened it after a long period of accumulation. There were very few people in history who succeeded in their awakening after one cultivation session, let alone Lu Ming, who was only a 5th-level celestial deity. Without awakening the origin divine power factor, how could he be Jin Yuan's match? Therefore, many people felt that Lu Ming was in danger. Some people had wanted to leave, but now they stayed. They wanted to see what would happen to Lu Ming, this unparalleled genius. Lu Ming could not be bothered to think too much. A day later, he entered the state of cultivation and entered the starry sky again. Now that I've successfully awakened the ruler's divine power, it's impossible for me to make a major breakthrough in a short time if I continue to comprehend it. I'd better comprehend other divine powers. Lu Ming pondered. The first awakening was equivalent to the first firmament of divine power, but it was extremely difficult to reach the second firmament, 10 times more difficult than the first awakening. It was impossible for him to break through in a short period of time. Therefore, Lu Ming decided to study another kind of divine energy. After some consideration, Lu Ming decided to study the inextinguishable sword force. The inextinguishable sword force was mainly for attacking. If he could successfully awaken it, it would greatly increase Lu Ming's offensive power. Of course, he had to first find the origin divine power that corresponded to the inextinguishable sword force. Lu Ming shuttled through the starry sky in search of the origin divine energy corresponding to the inextinguishable sword force. Battling Jin Yuan, Lu Ming was looking for the corresponding origin divine energy of the inextinguishable sword force. In the endless starry sky, a beam of sword chi pierced through the universe and swept across the starry sky. Wherever the sword chi passed, planets exploded one after another. Even a few stars were extinguished. Lu Ming was flabbergasted by the huge and boundless sword chi that pierced through the starry sky. It took him a long time to react. What a terrifying sword chi! Lu Ming was shocked. Then his eyes lit up. This was the origin divine power of the inextinguishable sword force. Lu Ming approached them rapidly, channeling the inextinguishable sword force at the same time. A beam of sword chi slashed at Lu Ming. The aura almost made Lu Ming's mind collapse. He only managed to calm himself down after letting out a loud roar. Buzz! And NBSP whoosh! The sound of the sword rang out unceasingly. The sword chi split into more than 10 rays and turned into more than 10 immortal sword lights, slashing toward Lu Ming. Come on! Lu Ming's fighting spirit was revealed. He held his long spear and went forward to fight against the sword radiance. This sword light was the same as the chief sovereign's origin divine power. When used to attack, one would be able to comprehend origin divine power even faster. Just like that, 3 months passed. Lu Ming's understanding of the inextinguishable sword force increased rapidly, especially in the early stages. The speed of improvement was even faster. 9 months later, Lu Ming had cultivated the inextinguishable sword force to 99%. However, it was very difficult to break through here. After that, Lu Ming spent another 3 months, but his inextinguishable sword force still did not break through. He did not successfully awaken the divine power factor. What a pity, there's no time. On the stone platform, Lu Ming opened his eyes and sighed softly. The 3 years were up. If Lu Ming was given another half a year, he was confident that he could successfully awaken the divine power factor of the inextinguishable sword force. But now, he was still a little short. When the light screen on Lu Ming's body disappeared, a cold, killing intent enveloped him. Lu Ming, the 3-year period is up. Let's see how you die. A cold voice came from behind him. Lu Ming did not need to look to know that it was Jin Yuan. Lu Ming turned around and saw a few eyes filled with killing intent staring at him. In the last year, Jin Yuan and the rest had been guarding the place to prevent Lu Ming from escaping in secret. The 3-year period is up. What will Lu Ming do? Many people had the same thought. They stared at Lu Ming, wanting to see what he could do. How do I die? You think you can kill me? Lu Ming smiled faintly, then stood up and left the stone platform. He walked towards Jin Yuan. Many people were stunned. Lu Ming actually walked out just like that. His attitude was so arrogant, as if he did not care about Jin Yuan at all. If you want to fight, then come up and fight. Lu Ming took a step forward and soared into the sky. He stood high in the air, his body exuding a strong fighting spirit. The others were even more stunned. This result was different from what they had imagined. Lu Ming did not think of a way to escape, nor did he beg for mercy. He challenged Gold Ingot. Lu Ming actually challenged Jin Yuan. With his strength, he'll only die if he challenges Jin Yuan. Could it be that he has also awakened the origin divine power factor? The crowd discussed spiritedly as they thought of this possibility. That's impossible, right? Someone denied. Lu Ming had only cultivated for 3 years and he had awakened the origin divine force factor. This talent was too monstrous. How could others live? Many people chose not to believe it. You want to challenge me? Even Jin Yuan himself was slightly stunned. Then his killing intent grew stronger. He soared into the sky and stood in front of Lu Ming. Boom. And NBSP Jin Yuan's entire body was enshrouded in dazzling golden divine power, and an ancient aura began to emanate from him. A terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming like a divine mountain. Lu Ming, I know that you're quite powerful. However, you're still far from being my match. Kneel down. Die. Jin Yuan shouted. He reached out and pressed in the air. Golden light filled the air and a huge golden palm print was formed, pressing down on Lu Ming. The sky rumbled. The palm print had not yet pressed down, but the violent chi was already crushing Lu Ming like a storm. If it were any other 9th-level heavenly god prodigies, no, even half-step divine kings, they might not be able to block this move. However, Lu Ming's eyes were very calm. There was even a hint of anticipation in the depths of his eyes. He was looking forward to clashing with the other geniuses who had awakened the origin divine power factor. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from Lu Ming's body. It was filled with an ancient aura. Then, a spear's gleam shot up into the sky, piercing through the clouds. The huge spear radiance collided with Jin Yuan's palm print, creating violent waves of power that swept in all directions. The dazzling radiance illuminated the sky as if a planet had exploded. In the next moment, the spear's gleam and the palm print disappeared at the same time. Lu Ming stood in the sky, motionless. Everyone was dumbfounded. It took a long time for someone to react. The origin divine force factor. Oh my God, it's the origin divine force factor. Lu Ming has also awakened the origin divine force factor. He has really awakened the origin divine power factor. This is impossible. How is this possible? Freak, freak. Many people were so excited that they couldn't help but shout. They had never expected that Lu Ming had also awakened the origin divine power factor. He had only cultivated for 3 years and was only at the 5th-level heavenly god realm. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Jin Xing roared in his heart, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had fought with Lu Ming in the Qin Heaven star system. However, he had not improved much yet, but Lu Ming had already awakened the origin divine power factor. He was known as one of the 4 heroes of the Jin family. He had always been very confident in his talent. However, compared to Lu Ming, his talent was trash. Jin Yuan was also extremely shocked. He looked at Lu Ming in shock. It was extremely rare for a 5th-level heavenly god to awaken the origin divine power. Jin Yuan had only heard that such a heaven-defying genius existed in the core regions of the Great Void Holy Dynasty. It had to be known that the higher one's cultivation was, the stronger one's Shen power would be, and the deeper one's understanding of Shen power would be. It would be easier to awaken the origin Shen power factor. The lower one's cultivation level, the more difficult it was. In the universal camp, anyone who had awakened the origin divine power factor below God King would be considered a 1 in a million supreme prodigy. However, the majority of those who had awakened their origin divine power were at the half-step God King realm. In history, The number of 9th-level heavenly deities awakening was extremely rare. Let alone a 5th-level heavenly deity. Is it very impressive to awaken the origin divine force factor? Lu Ming said calmly. His words were in response to Jin Yuan's earlier words. Jin Yuan had been acting all high and mighty just now, looking down on people who had not awakened the divine power factor. Lu Ming's words made Jin Yuan's face turn gloomy. You're only a 5th-level celestial deity. Even if you've awakened, your power is limited. Today, I'll kill you. Jin Yuan shouted, and the killing intent on his body became even stronger. The more talented Lu Ming was, the more he had to kill him. Boom. Jin Yuan stepped out. His palm was like a knife as he slashed at Lu Ming. Void severing hand. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. The void-breaking sword earlier, Jin Yuan had only casually attacked, but now he was serious and used the void-shattering hand. The void-severing hand was said to be able to sever the void. Under the activation of the origin divine power factor, its power was extremely powerful. It was not something people like Jianghu and Jin Xing could compare to. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. Ancient God Body. Lu Ming activated his ancient god body and turned into a green-armored ancient god. Then he thrust his spear at Jin Yuan. Thump. It was as if two planets had crashed into each other. The void trembled like boiling water, and violent energy surged in all directions like the water of a vast ocean, making loud rumbling sounds. Lu Ming could feel a terrifying force coming from the long spear. He could not help but retreat. However, Jin Xing wasn't any better off. His body also floated back. Kill! Jin Yuan retreated and stepped into the air, charging toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming let out a long howl and charged forward with his spear. The two of them fought intensely. In terms of size, Lu Ming was much larger than Jin Yuan. However, Jin Yuan's strength was not any weaker than Lu Ming's. Boom, boom. The two of them exchanged dozens of moves in a row, but there was no clear winner. Damn, how can this kid's Shen power be so strong? Jin Yuan shouted in shock. Both of them had awakened the origin divine force factor, but he was a half-step divine king while Lu Ming was only a 5th-level heavenly god. Indeed, although Lu Ming controlled many types of divine powers, only one of them had awakened the origin divine power factor. Moreover, his cultivation was at the 5th-level heavenly god realm. He would not be able to fight against Jin Yuan by relying on only one type of ruler's divine power. However, he had other divine powers, especially the undying sword force, which had been awakened to 99%. This made up for the gap between them. With the activation of the battle character formula, which increased his battle power by 4 times, he was able to compete with Jin Yuan. Void-breaking sword, slash. Jin Yuan bellowed in rage. His glabella glowed and a golden combat sword flew out, slashing at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had seen Jin Xing use this move before. He was not surprised as he was prepared for it. Dragon roars were heard as 9-clawed divine dragons that were 10,000 meters long formed above Lu Ming's head. A total of 7 pounced toward Jin Yuan. However, 2 more 9-clawed divine dragons were formed after the 7, making a total of 9 divine dragons. After a period of cultivation, especially in the Myriad God Cliff where he fought against the figures condensed from the divine power, Lu Ming's divine dragon materialization technique had made another breakthrough. He could condense 9 divine dragon manifestations at once. Moreover, the divine dragon materialization art was even more terrifying with the support of the ruler's divine power, which had awakened the origin divine power factor. The 9 divine dragons pounced at Jin Yuan continuously. Jin Yuan controlled the void-breaking sword and slashed at the divine dragon. Boom, boom. Terrifying clashing sounds rang out continuously as the 999-clawed divine dragons clashed with the void-breaking sword. Ice chains. Immediately after, Lu Ming cast the ice chain and attacked Jin Yuan. Jin Yuan hurriedly used the void-breaking hand to block it, but Lu Ming wielded his long spear and charged at Jin Yuan. Lu Ming used all his means and forced Jin Yuan to retreat continuously. He was at a disadvantage. The others were shocked. Was Gold Ingot going to lose today? This was a big deal. You want to defeat me? Impossible. Void-breaking sword, kill with 9 sword moves. That Jin Yuan bellowed. His entire body suddenly emitted a blinding light, and the space between his brows was like a small sun. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Sword hums sounded, and golden combat swords rushed out of Jin Yuan's forehead. There were a total of 8, and with the one from before, there were 9 in total. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The golden void-severing sword continued to slash out, and the sword light whistled through the air with astonishing power. Lu Ming's expression changed. He swung his long spear continuously to block the golden sword. Clang, clang, clang. The golden combat sword continuously slashed at the long spear. The long spear trembled violently, and the terrifying power of the void split through the long spear and spread to Lu Ming's entire body. Cracks appeared on the green scales on Lu Ming's body, and blood seeped out. Moreover, the long spear in Lu Ming's hand was cracked. What a shocking power! Lu Ming frowned. This spear was a high-grade level 9 divine artifact, but it could not block the other party's power. Kill, die! Jin Yuan shouted and controlled the void-splitting sword to continue slashing at Lu Ming. He wanted to kill Lu Ming in one go. Ice chains. Lu Ming controlled the ice chain and flew it back, enveloping himself in it. Clang, clang. The space-severing sword struck the ice chains, producing clanking sounds and sparks. However, the ice chains were completely fine, only leaving a few marks on them. It's so hard. Jin Yuan's eyes narrowed in shock. The void-severing sword was said to be able to sever the void. Its destructive power was shocking. In addition, there were 8 of them attacking at the same time. The power was even more terrifying. However, they could not cut through Lu Ming's ice chains. I don't believe it. Cut. Jin Yuan shouted and controlled the void-breaking sword to slash at Lu Ming wildly. However, it was blocked by the ice chains in the end. Although Lu Ming was pushed back by the powerful impact, the gold ingot could not hurt him at all. In the end, Gold Ingot even used the void-severing hand, but it was useless. Lu Ming hid in the ice chains and took the time to counterattack. He shot out rays of spear radiance at Jin Yuan. Lu Ming, what's the point of hiding in there? Come and fight me if you dare. Gold Ingot roared. This is my secret skill, a defensive secret skill. Does it not count as strength? What a joke. Lu Ming said in disdain. Jin Yuan gritted his teeth, speechless. Indeed, this was Lu Ming's secret skill and he did not rely on any treasure. Be it an offensive, defensive or speed secret skill, they were all part of his strength. Don't think that I can't break your defense. Jin Yuan's face was filled with ruthlessness. At this moment, the 9 void-severing swords all flew back into his body and fused with it. The golden radiance on Jin Yuan's body grew even more intense. In the end, he turned into a golden combat sword and slashed at Lu Ming. Buzz. The golden sword radiance illuminated the sky as if it was going to split the sky in half. The sword chi whistled through the air in a terrifying manner. What a powerful force, block it for me. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes. This should be Jin Yuan's most powerful attack. Lu Ming controlled the 9 ice chains with all his might. His divine power was constantly flowing into the ice chains. Boom. Finally, the sword made of gold ingot hit the ice chain, and the ice chain shook violently. Bang, bang. The next moment, something happened that made Lu Ming's eyes narrow. The ice chains broke one by one. After a few breaths, all 9 ice chains were broken. Then, the golden sword gleam slashed at Lu Ming's body. However, Lu Ming had the protection of the 9-layered scarlet gold armor. However, even the 9-layer crimson gold armor could not block the golden sword radiance. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.